The Salem Witch Trials. The Salem witch trials were a series of hearings and prosecutions of people accused of witchcraft in colonial Massachusetts between February 1692 and May 1693. A group of young girls began to exhibit strange behaviors, including fits, hallucinations, and speaking in tongues. People thought that this was caused by witches, which led to several men and women being blamed for the odd behaviors put on trial. This infamous period in American history resulted in the execution of 19 men and women, as well as the imprisonment of many others.
January 1692 First trial case. Bridget Bishop was the first victim of the Salem witch trials. In Salem Village, Massachusetts, Bridget Bishop was the first person accused and found guilty of being a witch. She was hanged. The trouble started when two young girls, Elizabeth and Abigail, began acting strangely. They had fits and other weird problems. People thought they were being cursed by witches. A doctor agreed and said that they were being bewitched, and the girls named the people they thought were doing it, which was Bridget Bishop. Salem witch trials in order of events. January 1692. Abigail Williams, Reverend Samuel Parrish's niece, and his daughter Betty start having convulsions and fits, and other girls start having the same strange behavior. February 1692. Tituba, the Reverend slave, is accused of witchcraft and is arrested. March 1st, 1692. Tituba confessed to witchcraft and says there are other witches in the community, leading to more hysteria. March through May. More people are accused, which leads to widespread panic. June 10th, 1692. Bridget Bishop is the first person hanged at Gallows Hill after being convicted of witchcraft. July through September. 18 people are hanged after being accused of witchcraft. In September, Giles Corey is stoned to death after being accused of witchcraft, which is the last death of the trials. January 1693. The witchcraft cases are dismissed and Governor Phipps pardons the imprisoned. October 1692. Governor William Phipps forbids further arrests and dissolves the court overseeing the trials. 1697. Samuel Sewall, a judge, apologizes for his role in the trials and declares a day of fasting for reflection. 1702. The public agrees the trials were unlawful. 1711. The colony passes a bill and gives compensation to the victims and the family of those that were accused. 1957. The state of Massachusetts formally apologizes for the Salem witch trials.
Witches' tests. Witches' tests. The Salem witch trials were a time where people were wrongly accused of being witches. To decide if someone was a witch, they were given strange tests. These tests were based on old, false ideas about witches, and often led to innocent people being punished. Swimming tests. People accused of witchcraft would be forcibly taken to the nearest body of water. There they would be stripped down to their undergarments and bound before being thrown into the water. The purpose of this cruel test was to determine whether the accused were witches or not. The idea was that witches not being baptized would float on water instead of sinking, which would lead to them killing the witch. If the accused person was innocent, they would be unable to swim and drown. Prayer tests. People believed that witches couldn't say Bible verses without making mistakes. This was because they thought witches worked with the devil. So, if someone was accused of being a witch, they had to say a Bible verse like the Lord's Prayer. If they made a mistake, it seems as proof that they were a witch. But sometimes people might make mistakes because they couldn't read well or they were nervous. Touch test. The touch test was a way to determine if someone was a witch. People believed that witches could cast spells on others. To test this, they would bring the suspect witch into a room with the person who was said to be under a spell. If the witch touched the person and the person stopped having a fit, it seemed as proof that the witch had cast the spell. Prickling and scratching tests. Witch hunters would sometimes torture suspected witches by prickling their bodies with needles. They believed that witches had special marks on their bodies that were invisible and didn't hurt. So they would poke the person with needles until they found a spot that didn't bleed, and then they would claim that was proof the person was a witch. Witches' cakes. A witch cake was a special type of cake that people thought could help them find out if someone was doing something bad. Witch hunters would make a weird cake out of urine, rye meat, and ashes. They would give the cake to a dog, thinking if the dog got sick, it would be because a witch has put a spell on the person. Witches' marks. Witch hunters would often force suspect witches to strip naked in public. They looked for special marks on their body that they thought were signs of a deal with the devil. These marks could change and didn't hurt when poked. They also looked for extra nipples, which they believed witches used to feed their animal helpers. Even the smallest thing, like a mole or a scar, could be used as evidence that someone was a witch. Incantations. This practice was known as charging, and involved the accused witch being forced to command the devil to release the possessed victim from their fit or trance. Others would also speak the words as a control, and judges would assess the impact on the victim's conditions. If the victim's condition improved while the accused witch spoke, it was seen as evidence of their guilty. This was a cruel and unscientific method to determine guilty, and it often led to innocent people being punished.
Aftermath of the Salem witch trials. Legal aftermath. People were fed up with how these trials were run, especially the use of spectral evidence like dreams or ghostly visions, which led to a lot of wrongful convictions. This public outreach pushed for stricter rules about what kind of evidence should be allowed in court, improving how trials were handled going forward. Legal social aftermath. Accusations of witchcraft spread through 25 different towns, involving neighbors, friends, and even family members in legal battles. This caused a lot of mistrust and tension in communities as the accusations were often intense but did not last long, damaging social relationships. Political aftermath. The backlash against the trials, especially the reliance on spectral evidence, led Governor William Phillips to shut down the Court of Oyer and Terminer, which had been overseeing the cases. This helped restore some order and put an end to the wild accusations that were spiraling out of control. Economic aftermath. Many of those accused were already struggling financially, like widows or poor people who were seen as a drain on the community. There were also tensions over land and resources that fed into the accusations. For instance, Martha Carrier had faced conflicts related to smallpox outbreaks, which made things even worse economically for her and her community.